Hello, welcome back to Parent Conversations. We've taken a couple weeks off. We were gone for Valentine's Day and then President's Day, and we are ready to get back at it. We hope that you are too. So welcome. It's the last Monday in February, and we were just talking about how excited we are that March is right around the corner, because with March comes warmer weather and more sunlight, and that always makes me happy. So we would love to give a shout out to a few health departments that make Parent Conversations possible. The Bear River Health Department, Davis County Health Department, and the Central Utah Public Health Department. Thank you. Thank you for your generous grants that, like I said, make Parent Conversations possible. I'm Megan. I'm the Assistant Director for My Discovery Destination and the Assistant for the Discovery Family Coalition, the leading organization of which is My Discovery Destination. And we, along with the health departments, bring Parent Conversations to you, and we hope that you have enjoyed them. We are almost to our year mark. It'll be another week, and we will have done these for a whole year. Yes, I can't believe it's been a year. Where did 2021 go? And we're marching through 2022, getting excited for new things this year. We are welcoming back Michelle with Epic Deliberate Digital. She did a series on digital wellness for us back in the fall, and she is here to do a follow-up today. So, Michelle, I hand the baton to you and let you run with it. And all of a sudden, Michelle's on mute.
Thank you for the reminder. Talking to myself. It's good to see you, Catherine and Melissa. Thank you for being here. Looks like we may be having just a really intimate little conversation. So I'm going to pull up a couple of slides just as a point of review. Let me see if I can get this to work. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay, so just as a point of review, I've also is my if I keep my window open that lets me see you, does that create a black or gray box on your screen?
I do not see a black or
Okay.
gray box. I see what you're sharing, and I see you in a small window on the side.
Okay, so we've sometimes had issues with some phantom gray box, so I just wanted to be sure it wasn't blocking anything. I just want to go back a little bit to where we've been and how Epic got to where we are, retouch on our model, and then we'll have just an open discussion. So when Epic started its work 8 years ago, initially we started in the anti-pornography space, because that is of concern to many of us who have or have had children or who care about children. And as we started that work, we realized, there are a lot of people already in that space. And so we decided that we wanted to expand the conversation around issues related to kids and technology and explore with community members from different sectors, different specialties, and have it just open this conversation around the pros and the cons, the positives and the negatives, the risks and the opportunities. And so this image is from one of our early community meetings in 2014, when we started to have those conversations that, yes, there are obstacles and pitfalls and concerns, but there are also opportunities and positives and hopes. And COVID has really brought this contrast, I think, even to more to light, that we see if you've had to work or do school from home, it's the overwhelm, just the fatigue of being in Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting. If you're working from home or watching your kids try to do class after class, that there are challenges to technology, and also some really wonderful opportunities have opened up in ways that maybe we didn't really think about before. I've had to hunker down because of health issues, and so all of my connection has to be through technology, and with different events and different experiences, I've been able to connect with people with whom I wouldn't have connected had the event been face to face. So we've all experienced, I think, more of these contrasts. When we talk about digital wellness, it's the same kind of conversation where we can look at the water we swim in, and we have no problem defining and identifying the multitude of risks and of downsides of all of these things coming at us. Negative energy, lots of negative messaging, just the 24/7 always on civil debates, and a lot of discord, and sometimes there's mis and disinformation and ads and all of these things. So we sometimes call this the water we swim in. This is a reality. But we like to be able to explore with more deliberateness how we can take that scale that sometimes feels heavy on the negative. We're going to use the chess piece here as though black represents the negatives, and the queen is the most powerful piece on the board, or at least one of the most powerful pieces, depending on how you play chess. But a lot of us feel the weight of the way that technology companies design their technology, and how it is designed to be kind of like a slot machine, where let's see how long we can keep you in front of that thing, pulling the lever, as it were. And recognizing how technology is designed, but adding more to that white side, adding more pieces to that side of things, and not just bemoaning our fate, but taking charge and taking responsibility, reclaiming our agency by adding more to that side, and being able to, like they say in prevention science, increase protective factors, increase the positives, increase use of technology that fosters relationships, that builds learning opportunities, that allows us to serve and help others, and of course making decisions to decrease risks and negatives, and also bringing more balance to the conversation overall. When we've talked about digital wellness, we like to say that it's less about managing technology per se, but more about aligning how we use technology with our values, who we really want to be and how we want to show up in the world, and our priorities and goals. It's about using technology in ways that can help us magnify the kind of people that we want to be. So I think you've both experienced our model. So just as a review, we took a digital wellness certification course last year, and we built our model based off of the Digital Wellness Institute's 6-pronged digital wellness model. So they had both a 6 and an 8-pronged model, and we chose to build our model off of the 6-pronged model because then it could coincide with their self-assessment, so that individuals and families could use the self-assessment for continued self-reflection and even some measurement. If I engage in practicing digital wellness in these different areas, can I see some progress? So those areas that from the Digital Wellness Institute included the ones marked with an asterisk, starting here: mental wellness, physical wellness, honoring time. We call it honoring time, they call it productivity, relationships, well-being, and digital citizenship. As we took this course, we were struck by the fact that they more than once mentioned, okay, well, when you are trying to practice digital wellness, make decisions that are in alignment with your values. Well, we didn't really talk about that. We didn't really explore that. And we felt that that was just essential. So our model starts there. We start with our center. And if you were with us in that initial module that we call Start with Your Center, we challenged you, invited you to write for 10 minutes about a core value. And in this setting, we define a value as the kind of person that you want to be, or a characteristic or attributes that you'd like to develop. We can think of values in a lot of different ways. They can be issues we care about and things that matter to us. And we get to that more when we talk about honoring time. But when we talk about these core values, we're talking about attributes that we could bring to any of our responsibilities or our roles, any settings. So if I want to be a kind person, then I want to work on it at home. I want to work on it at the grocery store, with strangers, on the freeway, in my volunteer work, in my work if I have a job, with friends, with extended family, in church settings, in the public square. These are traits and characteristics that we want to bring to any and all facets of our lives. So we added that, and we also added media literacy, actually in 3 different places. So when we are trying to define and remember and stay centered on our values, we can look at core texts and other media that have had an impact on us, that have helped shaped who we want to be, or given us a vision of who we want to be and how we want to show up in the world. And media can also help remind us. So, perhaps you have, like on my phone, I have a sketch that my daughter drew that helps me remember some of my core values. Or on my wall, I have paintings, and I have 3x5 cards and various types of media. I have a painting here that my daughter did in this room to remind me of different elements of who I want to be, and how I want to, what can help me stay centered. We also use media literacy to engage in information about digital wellness. We've provided boatloads of resources, and we'll continue to share with your community. Excuse me. And we need media literacy skills to sift through that. Not everything we read is going to resonate. And on the flip side, if and as we do research, we might see patterns from different sources and start to be able to formulate more of the decisions we want to make in these different areas. And then we bring media literacy also into conversations about digital citizenship and citizenship in general, that media literacy is essential to engaging in the public square and engaging with other people, recognizing that different people will engage with messages in different ways. People have different value systems with which they engage. How they define their conscience and their core may vary from how we do, and or how I do. You and I might have some different conscience points, and media literacy skills can help us engage in a more civil manner. So we fold that into different facets of our model. And we didn't do social development strategy in our series with you because My Discovery Destination has covered that well, and it's so folded into the work that you do. But we do include that in most of our models. So today I want to talk a little bit first just about language around digital wellness. Here are a few. You may recall a couple of these quotes, but here are a few different quotes that we use or bring to conversations about digital wellness. And then I'd like to ask you, what language resonates with you? What comes to mind as you think about digital wellness or digital centeredness? Whether either as you're listening again today, or as you reflect on the series that we did together a few months ago. So first, this quote from Viktor Frankl: "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." So we've used, in this latest series that we're doing, we've used this black box, if you will, like what happens inside that box between stimulus and response. The stimulus could be media messages. It could be verbal messages that we're having in face-to-face conversations. It could be messages in our minds. We have our own internal marketers, our own internal propaganda. It could be messages that are coming from our bodies. So there's the physical wellness element. It could be messages that are happening in either nonverbal or verbal communication in our relationships. You can, if you've got the model in your head, you can see that I'm mentally going around the model. This principle of stopping and pausing and asking questions ranges throughout the model, from media literacy to mental wellness to physical wellness to managing time and honoring time. Okay, here are all these demands on my time. How do I want to actually organize based on my values and my priorities, rather than just hacking away at to-do lists and minutia that may end up driving, like, who's driving the bus here, my to-dos or my values? Here's another quote. This is one of our favorites. In the attention economy, mindfulness is activism. So there can be a lot of frustration about tech companies, and they should, and trying to, you know, and we should have more policy. And I'm not saying there isn't a time and place for that, but those kinds of changes, A, take time, and B, often don't end up being what we might envision or might want. No matter what is happening in the water we swim in around us, as we build mindfulness and self-awareness, that is a form of activism, first of all, because we're reclaiming our agency. And secondly, if we start to say no, and many of us do that, it can change the dynamics in the market as well. And then Tristan Harris, who is one of the leaders in the humane technology movement, he says, he warns us that technology is taking away our agency to spend our attention and live the lives that we want. But as Jay Vidyarthi says, we can reclaim that as we practice building mindfulness. So when I took the digital wellness certification course, I took some of my notes and some of the content, and I created this word cloud. This is not, it's not exhaustive, but it just shows how many different elements, how many different concepts, how many different ideas are packed into what digital wellness means. But as we've done this latest series, we've wanted to involve and include the participants in the series in helping define, and we actually have created a word cloud in this community. We're doing a series with the state PTA. And I wanted to invite you to contribute to this growing word cloud. What words come to mind for you as you consider the concept of digital wellness? What synonyms, and it could be based on any one of those areas in the model, or just in general, when you think about digital wellness, when you've made the time to come to these parent conversations, what's bringing you here? What's weighing on you, you know, on that Black Queen chess side of things? What concerns do you have? If you were to do a sticky note conversation with us, like that first slide, what might you put on the wall? What are some of the things that are on your mind when it comes to wellness? And what I would like to do is see if I can pull this up. Just give me a second. Can you see the Mentimeter now?
Yeah, we can.
So what I'd like to do is just invite you to, because I know that sometimes you're listening as you're doing things. So I'll be your scribe, but just call out some words, or if you'd rather chat, then Megan, I'll ask you to man the chat. But
I can do that.
help us keep creating a word cloud that explores synonyms and what's in your heart about digital wellness, about your concerns, about your hopes, about things that you have been thinking about or learning, what you want to practice, any of these things?
I'll throw out a couple of the two that I'm thinking of might even be at odds with each other. And the first one is balance.
Okay.
Oh, you want the second word right now?
No,
Productive.
it's,
Oh,
I can enter in because like it says, I should have just done, a long, whatever, but I'm just using kind of the old.
oh, I see. Well, the other one I was thinking was productivity. Like I said, they seem to be almost at opposite ends of the scale. It doesn't feel like I can be very productive and still have balance sometimes.
Okay. So the idea of tension is really, really central to digital wellness, that there is no formula, right? That every day we have to kind of engage in real time about what this might mean. So I don't think they're in conflict. I think you have illustrated perfectly the kinds of tensions that are inherent in digital wellness.
Yes.
Is it okay if I submit those?
Sure.
I'm actually going to put tensions too, right? What word would you use for that? You felt like there's conflict, conflicting. How did you say it?
I thought at odds with each other.
Concepts at odds with each other. Oh, it's not going to let me. Concepts odds. I'm just going to.
That works.
It only gives me a certain amount. Other thoughts?
We just did a multi-day road trip with our kids. And I know a lot of people like to do little DVD players and things like that. And so I was talking to my husband about that. Like, wouldn't it be nice for one of the kids quiet for, at least a couple hours at a time? They're not fighting or, whatnot. And one thing that we decided was that we don't like to do that kind of stuff in the car, because it's like the only time that our kids have to kind of step away and just be okay being with themselves and to work through some of those conflicts with siblings. So I'm not sure how to summarize that, but that's one thing that we talked a lot about this past week, is just trying to help our kids be okay with being alone with their own thoughts.
I love that. Can I write that last, be okay? Let me see if it will let me. Be okay being alone with thoughts. No, that's not going to let me. I'm just going to put being alone with thoughts. Is that okay? Does that sum up?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Is there more you'd like me to add? Like deliberate choices about media, like media in the car, choices about media in the car, because there's that element.
I mean, we did music and we did an audiobook, but the kids actually didn't really like the audiobooks very much.
Awesome. I love how fresh that is too, on your mind and in your experience. Can I ask?
Oh, go ahead. Let's finish up this, and then I'll read the what's come in the chat.
Excellent. I'm going to follow up with a question with Catherine, if that's okay. So as you made this decision, as you engaged with your husband and you tried this with your children, how did it go?
It wasn't terrible. There were a few moments where I'm like, oh, it'd be so nice to just kind of watch my, kind of like that would have been a cop out from the situation. But they really handled it really well. We have a 6-month-old, and he probably had the hardest, but a movie would have fixed his problems anyway. And by the end, he had calmed down and figured out what traveling was like too.
Seems like there's something else that I missed from what you said too about helping children deal with conflict too.
Because kids, when they're next to each other for hours on end, like
I'm losing you a little.
And then they don't really have the opportunity,
Catherine, you may have to follow that up with some chat. We lost you just a little bit.
Okay.
I love that though, that you're leaning in to that, helping them, opening space for them to practice dealing with content. So I'm going to add something like not using tech. How would you say that? Not using tech
As an avoidance?
to avoid hard. Okay, awesome. Such great thoughts. Love it. Thank you.
Okay, you ready for some out of the chat?
I am.
Emily, she says she has a concern about being more present. This goes along with balance. I want to be 100% present with family, but I also need to have focus when I need to work or communicate with others via technology. That was the first thing she said.
Such a great tension. So let's capture both of those. Again, it only gives me 25 characters. So can you help me out here? Let me pull it up. I think I can see the chat right now. Want to be 100% present. Well, let me do 100%. Nope.
Doesn't like symbols either.
Doesn't like symbols.
Totally.
I want to be
Totally.
present. Good.
How about must be?
How about want to be like that?
That works.
Okay. Yes, and then need focus for work,
Yep.
etc. Such tensions. So that really goes into the honoring time and productivity module, and the tensions with that with relationships. So if we talk about productivity and our responsibilities pulling on our time and our relationships pulling on our hearts, and what do we do with those tensions? So I think, I don't know if there's anybody who doesn't. I'm nodding my head on that one for sure.
Yep. Okay. The next comment she made, she started with the word positive. Engaging, incorporating different forms of media can be very engaging.
Can I put, would it be okay if I put like variety of media? Or engaging variety? That's not letting me. Positive variety of media. I hope that is an okay summary. I want to use your words directly, but I'm limited by space.
And then the last thing she mentioned was it really helped the learning process in the classroom to break up the day between varying forms of media.
So Emily, you're a teacher. Am I
Emily is a
perceiving that
teacher.
correctly?
She is.
Yeah, I taught third grade, and that's kind of when like the Chromebooks and stuff first came out, when each classroom could have their own Chromebook per student. And at first I was really hesitant, but I found, you know, if as long as you keep the balance, like the kids really like breaking up maybe a half hour with that, or even music or books, or, you know, just between the different sources of media available, it really broke up their day and they concentrated better even.
That makes sense because our brains are, we can kind of have attention loss, right? If everything's kind of monotone. So you learned to be able to bring a variety to help keep their attention. Awesome. Thank you for bringing a teacher's perspective. Anyone else? And Emily, welcome. Sorry, I didn't, my window didn't, I didn't see that you were here. This is a brainstorm. There aren't any limits. So if there are other things that are coming to mind.
Okay, nothing else in the chat yet, but if something pops in, I'll let you know.
I'm going to add balance again because Emily brought that up. And I'm going to put, I'm just trying to make sure we reflect what has been said in this chat.
Another one is
Communicate.
the human disconnect.
Tell me more what you mean.
Just that we all seem to be so connected to our technology that we are not connected to the humans around us. And I mean, balance that goes along with balancing and everything else. But that's just something that really concerns me, is this disconnect, especially with little kids. And yeah,
It's such a valid concern, and the research shows that, even we were talking about this just last week in our current series, that even the presence of a phone, so there are two elements of this mere presence. There are a few actually, but I'll talk about two here based on what you said. Mere presence. The mere presence phenomenon means that having a phone, even if it's not on, even if you're not using it, just the presence of a phone can impact our brain's capacity to function well. If it's really close to us, like on the desk, versus, I don't know if you remember this from the series, but if it's close to us on the desk, our working memory and our fluid intelligence, our ability to reason and solve problems, goes down. If it's in a bag or a pocket, those things go up. If it's in another room, up another level. And the same can be true. Do you remember? That just is so fascinating to me. The same can be true about the presence of a phone in a relational situation or a social situation, a phone on a table at a restaurant, or a phone in mama's hand, or a phone. My daughter would sometimes just, when she was in high school, she would sometimes just say directly to her friends, like, put your phones away, because they'd be getting together, but then everybody's, got their face in their phones. Any other thoughts?
Oh, I had one and then it escaped me. Let me see if I can rein it back in. It had to do with what your daughter said about the bringing the phone in. When I go out socially with friends or something, I turn my phone off. I might have it on me, but I turn it off. Oh, I remember what else I was going to say. A couple of months ago, I ran some errands and I accidentally left my phone at home. And it was a very peaceful day. I got a lot done. Every once in a while I thought, oh, I should stop and text so-and-so and remind him, oh, I can't. Oh, well. And yeah, it was, yeah. But that,
when
and
you
then
forgot your phone, it was peaceful.
Yeah, I forgot my phone at home and it was probably 3 or 4 hours of just almost pure errand running bliss.
So
yeah, but yeah.
Therefore, after that experience, did you make any changes? Or, I mean, at least just the reflection and the awareness is amazing, but did it impact any did you make any tweaks as a result?
Nothing conscious that I can think of, but like I said, when I do go out socially, and I'm single, I've dated a little bit, and and if I go out to lunch with a friend, or I will turn my phone off. I'll turn the ringer off. And I also do have my ringer go off at a certain time every night and turn on in the morning. So I think it's from like 11 to 5 or something. If somebody messages or calls me, I'm not going to get it. I just don't.
That's good. That's a great technique.
Yeah.
Turning notifications off is one way to be deliberate, to add more on the white side, add more white chess pieces, is just being deliberate about notifications. I have an interesting counter experience to that, where I had my phone off, and then in my bubbleheadedness, couldn't remember where I put it, because I had carried it with me, and it took me a day to find it.
A whole day. Nice.
So I didn't have a peaceful experience not knowing where my phone was. I knew it was somewhere in the house, but it was a good opportunity for me to adapt and, okay, well, what am I going to do? You know, I had meetings that I needed to, I really needed it for, but I guess I built a little bit of resilience muscle there, trying to adapt around it. It was sobering to see how dependent I am on it too.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
I'll bet it was.
I wish I had been a little more peaceful about it, but but I knew that I'd said it somewhere where it's like, yeah, it could be weeks if it's buried under a blanket or something, and I don't know where to look for it.
That could be disconcerting. I can see that. So,
Okay, well, if any other things come to mind, then please let me know and we can add them. I'm just going to go back to our model for a second, just to review it. Because you were here, I think everyone here was here for at least some of the series. I do want to note that at Megan and Charlie's invitation, we are helping with weekly digital wellness posts on MDD's Facebook page
yes,
or
and we
pages.
really appreciate that. Thank you.
So just so that you know how we're approaching it, starting in January, we just decided to spend a month on each of these topics. So January, we covered some ideas around starting with your center. February has been about media literacy. March, we'll touch on mental wellness and so on. And each month, I will include a link to a Google Doc that's relevant to the topic sometime during the month, so that you have access to more resources, books, research articles. Some of the documents have links to articles or videos. It varies depending on the topic, but we just want you to have access to information, of course, with no pressure at all, but just so that if you want to research or dig in a little bit more on some of these topics, that you can. And also, if you have resources that you have found helpful on any of these topics, please let us know and we can add them to our resource list. We certainly don't have a corner on all the information, and part of the intention in creating learning communities like with My Discovery Destination and your community is that we can have this ongoing conversation and learn from and with each other. We certainly don't have all the answers, and we've learned so much in engaging with people who are in these discussion series. So as you look at the model, do you have any takeaways from our series from before, or any questions follow-up questions from our discussions that we've had, or any thoughts or ideas or experiences that you'd like to share relative to any of these topics? Has there been anything that you've tried that you didn't try before that was new to you from the series?
I have really tried. I remember when we talked about productivity and talked about not letting yourself get pulled away. I can't remember the terminology that you used, but it's just been, it's really been a challenge. I've noticed even more since the series how many times I get interrupted trying to do something.
In a strange kind of irony, almost, the more aware we are, in a way, at first it can be a little overwhelming, right? Because once you come awake, it's a little bit like coming out of anesthesia.
Yeah.
that so much of this is the water we're swimming in, whether it be because of the way technology is designed, or just the habits that we've formed and the things, the rhythms that we're used to try to build awareness can be a little jolting.
Yep.
I've found similar things where as I'm making changes, I can feel the pull of the old, of old habits, and sometimes just like, whew, this is work, to practice new things, but it's also exciting. Like, you're building new muscles.
That's a good way to put it.
What if we, for the last few minutes, just have a few, let's dig into this a little bit more, going back to what Emily shared and what you shared as well, Megan, about the tensions. That's the word that I use, is to dance in the tensions. You can picture a pendulum, you can picture a scale. I had a friend years ago who used to talk about a greased hump, that, just when you think you've kind of found balance, then you slide to another side, and it's a constant wrestle. Let's talk a little bit about that. So, for example, I'm looking at Emily's comment, this tension between trying to be more present. So saying relationships matter to me, that may be family, friends, defining the relationships, those bonding. We talked about the difference between bonding and bridging capital. The bonding capital is our inner circle people, the people that we're wanting to build relationships with for the long haul, right? So we want to be present here, she says, with family, and that can include other close ties as well. And we also need to show up for our responsibilities, for work, and with bridging capital, with other relationships that are important as well for different reasons. Let's talk about that. Do you have some? I'll start by just sharing a couple of examples where, depending on the circumstance, I went one way or the other. There is no right answer, right? It just depends on the moment. I think the idea of being present is kind of the answer, in the sense of being present with what the moment is asking for, what the moment demands. So 3 weeks ago, I think, we were in the middle of our live discussion, and I got a phone call. So I had turned my notifications off on my phone, but on my computer, it's a little more buried, and I had the thought to do it, but just ran out of time. So the notification for my phone was still on my computer. And I don't know, 15 minutes before our discussion ended, my son called through. He and I hadn't talked to him for like 2 or 3 weeks. He was calling he was on a trip in Mexico, and I was just like, but because I was facilitating in that moment, I had to make that decision. I chose to, can I call you later? Send him that instant message or whatever. Actually, I think I may have just muted it and then sent him a text after the meeting. So in that situation, I had to choose the responsibility that was present. When we talked about productivity and honoring time, we talked about time boxing, if you recall, that rather than just scheduling by to-dos, we block off time based on priorities, and then try to stay consistent with that, because for follow through, but also because it's good for our brain. It's good for our brain to say, I'm going to do this for an hour, and I'm going to stick with it without distraction. It helps train our brain away from distraction. Last week, I was working on work and had time boxed to work on work, and my son called through. And because of the circumstance, I was like, okay, today I'm going to shift my time box and talk to my son, because we don't get to talk very often. And in that situation, I could be a little more flexible, or I chose to be flexible in that regard. So there's an example of the dance, in different circumstances, we make different choices. Do any of you have examples of those kinds, some specific memories or instances? Emily, please.
With the time boxing comment, it made me think, I was gonna say earlier, something I've learned through this series is being intentional with your time. I mean, it's okay to do these other things, but you're choosing to do that and not being like split between family and technology or whatever. But with the time boxing, my husband started giving me like 1 hour of designated free time in the evening. And that worked for a few months. I mean, maybe a short period of time, but from like 7 to 8 every day, he'd let me go do my thing. And to me, that was so rewarding. I could go on my computer, I could digitally scrapbook, I could do something. And to me, it was a big relief. And I was able to put my time towards that. So when I did come back and reconnect with my family or whatever, I was able to more fully come back to my duties as a mom, or get the kids ready for bed or whatever. So I think it helped me to focus my attention to my project. And then when the time was over, I was more fully present to, do the mom stuff again.
I muted myself. I love that. Can I add something to our word cloud about intentional rest or
Downtime.
intentional downtime? Near El talks about this. Actually, he's one of the people we shared. He's one of the people who talks about time boxing, and we shared quite a bit from him. And he said, there's nothing wrong with scrolling Facebook or watching YouTube videos, or he says it's all about intentionality, being intentional. that the challenge comes when we do those things mindlessly rather than having time set apart. So I love that. Is such a great example of the power of time boxing, that it isn't time boxing for only, responsible, whatever we defined as responsible. Scheduling downtime is actually, it's one of the things when we did our activity last week, in our current series, we covered honoring time, and we wrote down the different domains the different main categories that we want to prioritize in our time boxing. And I realized that I'm not prioritizing. I'm not actually setting aside time for rest and rejuvenation in that kind of way. So you've inspired me, Emily.
I always feel guilty. Well, not always, but a great deal of the time I feel guilty if I try and schedule some intentional downtime when I have so much work to do. It depends on the activity though. If I enjoy exercise and some of those things too much to let me feel too guilty. So if I'm going to go play volleyball, which I do weekly, or if I'm going to go to the gun range, which I do monthly, I don't let those big things get in the way. But it's more like, I just want to shut my computer and just not stare at a screen for a minute. Maybe actually pick up the phone and talk to somebody, or go hug one of my grandkids or something. That's where I find a little bit more guilt cut in, when I feel like I should be working, and instead of doing nothing, just nothing for a few minutes.
So do
Does
you
that make
have
sense?
it totally makes sense. I think many of us struggle with that. So I just want to keep that open. Like, if you're going to have a conversation with yourself, or based on what we know about how we work and how productivity, our limits in terms of capacity. I don't know if you recall that they say that we max out at about 90 minutes, and then we start to lose effectiveness. So maybe you can, reframe that and encourage yourself, like, I'm going to be more productive in the long run if I take some breaks along the
True.
way.
And if you're basing it off that 90 minutes, how much time should you spend on a break? Remind us of that.
They recommend 10 to 15 minutes every 60 to 90.
Awesome. Okay.
And at the very least, 5 minutes every 30. So
Yeah.
one of the, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I remember that when I'd gone back to school online, I remember taking some organizational 1 credit course that talked about that. 25 minutes of concentrated effort, 5 minutes off. You do that 3 times, and then third time you take 15 minutes instead of 5.
I love that. I mean, there's no one right way, but there you can see the patterns, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
in fact, I was going to say one of the, if I don't know if you remember, but one method of time boxing is called the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro means tomato. And the only thing that I can figure that why they named it that is that, you know, as a product line, this company created a timer that looks like a tomato. So it's like a kitchen timer shaped like a tomato, and it's set to run for 25 minutes. And so they call their time boxing approach the Pomodoro technique, with the idea that you can do anything for 25 minutes. You know, often with productivity, we'll put off the hard things, or it's not uncommon to do that. And we'll kind of piddle, you know, because we're tired, and because that taking that next step to the big thing. For me, sometimes it's hard to start into a big project because then I might get lost in it. On the flip side, you know, when you get into a really good flow, you can actually also lose touch with your world. And so there are challenges on both sides, being too distracted or being too, you know, I end up not eating, and you know, because I get so into something. So the Pomodoro technique can just keep us, give yourself 25 minutes of flow and then take a break. So lots of different ways to kind of play games with our brains to stay it. Again, it's going back to what Emily said. It's a way to stay present throughout the process of tackling what we need to do.
Well, it's time to pull out my timer. It doesn't look like a tomato, but it'll work like one.
Yeah, sometimes I'll just set a timer on my computer.
Yes, I've done that too.
And both to keep focused, like, okay, in the NERI, I'll measure, saying, instead of measuring to-dos, measure if you stayed focused for the amount of time that you said you would, to practice non-distraction. What I'm working on is then also, when the timer goes off, to get up and take a break
and physically move.
Yep, exactly.
I like it. Okay, I'd forgotten about that until today. So thank you for that reminder. I need to do that.
You bet. Got a couple more minutes. Any other thoughts, successes, questions, concerns, experiences, things that are coming to mind? Okay, well, thank you for letting us, for joining us. This is where it's at, friends, is being able to have continued conversations and to learn from and with each other, to keep the principles present, because digital wellness is just a practice. I was saying last week, I've been immersed in this for over a year now, and I can see some changes, but there's no way I can tackle all of the tips that we share. You know, even just a tiny shift here or there can help start to create an upward spiral where more things can flow. So just keep practicing even the little things, and keep the conversations going. There's a lot of power just in talking about it. So thank you for,
it kind of helps to know that we're not alone.
that too. This is a ubiquitous challenge. There is not anyone who has this figured out, because if we are engaged with technology, we are facing the challenges of it, and having lots of opportunities to practice digital wellness principles. So
yeah. Thank you. Does anyone have any more questions for Michelle? Michelle, thank you. I appreciate you coming and sharing again. I always have good takeaways from your series. So, and your Wednesday, your Digital Wellness Wednesday posts as well. So Okay, if we don't have any more questions, I don't see anything in the chat, nobody's hands raised. We'll go ahead and end today's session. Next week, we're going to hear from an attorney about his pet project. It's called I Believe, and I cannot remember any of the other details about it right now, but I will post about it in the group. So, and then the week after that, we're going to start a 6-week parenting series. So I look forward to seeing all of you next week. Tell your friends and family and catch us in the groups and stay caught up on everything that we're doing. And we had a thank you from Catherine. She says, thank you so much, Michelle. Catherine, we always appreciate
Thank
having
you
you
for
here.
being here, everyone.
Yeah,
Thanks
Emily,
for the
Melissa.
conversation.
Yeah. Okay, we will see everybody next week. Same time. We will be going to noon in 2 weeks. There's some conflicts with some meetings that the grants require us to be in attendance of. So next week, plan 1 o'clock, and then after that, we're gonna have to bump it to noon. So we'll see you next week, 1 o'clock, same Zoom room, same password. Thank you.